Greetings, beloveds. This is Caryn Johnson, the Earth Channel. I create videos on YouTube or for YouTube. Sometimes they're sound recordings with images, as you will see today, about Vedic human design and with channeled messages from Gaia, Mother Earth. You may have heard of human design before, but this is only the second video where I'm calling my version of it Vedic human design. I have been contemplating several new things lately. I have, beyond contemplating, been making some changes to my website, in particular my readings and channeling page. If you want to go check it out, it's at amycarynjohnson.com, AMYCarynJohnson.com. And it's pretty easy to find the readings and channeling page if you go there. One of the things you will see there, if you do check it out, is a question about helping people. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. On that page, I say, I just want to help people, but, and when I say that, I am quoting you, because I hear that from so many people. Then, directly underneath that, I ask, when was the last time you accepted help for yourself? The reason I'm asking this is because one of the things I have been contemplating as I think about offering people help is how rarely people accept help themselves. I have fairly regularly throughout my life, I am just past what most people would call middle age now, sought out help. Now, granted, that hasn't always been as a result of just like, hey, I think this person can help me. Or I just randomly think I need help. I don't know if that's what you thought. Perhaps those are one of the first impressions that popped into your mind when I said this. But usually it has been triggered by encountering a challenge of some kind in my life. And I've had plenty of challenges, and so that is the main reason I have sought so much help. Now, I'm not saying people don't seek help. They do, especially when they're faced with these challenges of which I am speaking. Sometimes they wait for a really big challenge. Other times they may seek help with smaller challenges as well. Other times maybe not so much. But the other thing that happens when people seek help is that they want a quick fix. And when it doesn't offer a quick fix, it doesn't happen quickly, that the help that they have found or received or asked for does not quickly resolve their challenge completely, they give up. They assume that it was bad help or not enough. They give up. They assume that it will never be enough. So I know how frustrating this can be when you, perhaps at first at least, feel like you shouldn't need help. And that's a pretty big epidemic in our society, I'm afraid, especially in the United States. Thinking that you have to do everything all by yourself, or it's not your own achievement. Anyone who has ever achieved anything in this world and in this country has always had help. I guarantee it. So don't buy into that fallacy. I think I am a bit unique among people for the fact that when one thing has not helped me, I have continued to build on that initial help. I have continued to find additional sources of help, additional things to act as solutions, resolve situations. One of the things I can give you as an example for this in my own life is my health. I had Graves' disease when I was diagnosed with it when I was in my 20s, early to mid 20s. Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease, and typically in the United States, at least back then, once you were diagnosed with Graves' disease, a lot of people, a lot of doctors even would assume that eventually you're going to have your thyroid destroyed, such as by radioactive iodine. I refused to accept this, and I did have support and help at this time to take this path of refusing to accept the destruction of my thyroid gland. And so I definitely appreciate that help, appreciated it at the time, because without that kind of support, I may have just believed whatever the first doctor, I should say, told me. As it was, I went to see an endocrinologist, a specialist in glands and these kinds of problems, and she recommended that I try going off the medication that I was on. And sure enough, I went off of it, and my blood work was, if not normal, it was actually lower, as opposed to when Graves' disease is active, your blood work, your thyroid hormone is typically higher. The immune system stimulates it to create more thyroid hormone. So the drugs had almost worked too well that first time. Then I had a relapse, and I want to note here also that each of these times when I was either diagnosed with Graves' disease or what they call a thyroid storm, these episodes where your body does produce too much thyroid hormone because your immune system is overstimulating it, overstimulating the thyroid gland. I was under stress, so that is absolutely a factor, and I think most people understand that stress is a factor in each of these things, in each type of illness and disease. So, but eventually I did see another doctor. I actually moved across state lines a decent distance away, so I had to find new doctors as well as a new endocrinologist. The new endocrinologist I found was not quite so open-minded as the first one I had. And so I ended up secretly chopping up my pills, going in regularly for my blood work to be tested, and waited until I had weaned myself slowly off this medication completely and my blood work was still normal to tell him what I had done. So I'm not necessarily recommending that you guys do exactly what I did, but if you're checking in regularly like that and you understand what it takes to, or what it is to have normal blood work and or healthy blood work, that kind of thing, this could be something that you may want to try. I'm not recommending it, but All I'm saying is if you ever tried anything like this, obviously be careful. Obviously continue to go in for your regular checkups so that you know that you're not doing yourself any damage. But I am simply sharing my own experience here. I am not offering advice in terms of medication. That being said, this applies beyond our bodies. It applies beyond our health, our physical health. It goes for our satisfaction in life. It goes for jobs. Here's another example beyond my physical well-being. I was laid off from a job in 2009. Or was it 2008? I'm sorry. Yeah, it was 2008. Late 2008, I was laid off from a job. It was really hard at that time to find another job. I also got divorced, and at this time, I had, again, actually, incidentally, just to connect it to the other story, overcome Graves' disease. My blood work was normal. I was no longer on drugs, but I also went through a divorce. And having no job, no longer being married, I had to move back across state lines. I ended up moving back to my home state. And I got pretty depressed at that time, trying to apply for different jobs, not finding any, taking really low paying jobs at the time, until I finally decided to go back to school. But in that interim period when I was figuring things out, trying these other jobs, I was continuing to do consulting work in my main profession at the time as well, but obviously there wasn't a lot of work and I was not getting paid very much for that little work that I did at that time. So I was so depressed that I started going through these mental exercises with myself of like, I hope that none of you have had to go through this before, but it did get to the point for me where I started questioning my life. Like, what's it worth? What's it all about? I mean, what am I doing? Is it worth going on? And I won't go so far as to say I was suicidal. I'm sorry that so many people do go down that road so far as that. But, obviously I was not in a good place. But I got to the point where I was like, all right, if I'm so depressed that I'm having these kinds of thoughts, what's the harm in going into maybe a little bit more debt just to do whatever it takes to make myself happy again? What am I willing to give up to feel better? And I'm, again, not saying anyone should go into a great amount of debt, but I mean, one of the main things people go into a huge amount of debt for is school. And that's one of the things that is respected. And yet people are not guaranteed a good job after they go back to school, college, university, whatever. Even online classes are really expensive. So this is an argument against the kind of perfectionism that will only allow you to do the things that are respected and not allow you to do the things that are actually more practical and will make you happier, not only immediately, but in the long run as well. There are plenty of different trainings that you can find out there. Now, granted, you should do your research to make sure they're legitimate and respectable and worth it, worth whatever price tag they come with. But wow, some of these trainings that are even $1,000 or more than $1,000, a few $1,000s, are still a lot cheaper than going to college. And granted, neither one is guaranteed that you will be able to pay it off or you will be able to make a lot of money very quickly, and certainly not without a lot of work. College is a lot of work, but so are a lot of these trainings, and so is the continuing learning that you have to do on your own even after these courses are done. But any kind of self-growth that will be fulfilling does take work. But I am telling you right now, it is very rewarding when you actually do put in that work and you actually see the results, because nothing else will give you those results other than that work. And I'm not necessarily talking about gajillions of hours reading or online. Sometimes it might take a bit of that, and I'm not saying physical labor either, which I guess is one possibility as well. It's the work of stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing things that are different to you, hopefully not obsessing about them so much that you do yourself any damage, either physically or mentally, but just going through the steps with a bona fide effort, giving it a chance, learning from mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. Every time you make a mistake, you learn what not to do, or how to adjust, how to course correct. But it is absolutely worth trying these new things, making these small investments, and accepting this kind of help. Really giving it the old college try. Forgive the pun, but maybe there's a reason for that phrase. Really putting your whole heart into something like that. So don't just do it for anything. Do it for something that you think you could be passionate about. Not obsessive, but passionate. And then it might not seem so much like work. It might not seem so hard. So this has been a long message without channeling a message from Gaia today, but I felt the need to share some of this. We do have some new energies upon us, and I have seen and heard a lot of people struggling. And so that's why I really felt the need to share this personal message today. And knowing that when anyone shares their experience firsthand and I get to listen to it, I find that the most helpful thing of all. And so that's why I wanted to share my experience with you, in the hopes that you would understand the kind of things that really do help people so that you can offer them, and in the hopes that perhaps this kind of thing will help you as well. Thanks so much for being with me today, beloveds. Namaste.